Hello everyone. Hopefully, you began with the introductory module on the Symphonica platform itself, what makes it different, how it's capable of accelerating time to market, and why communication service providers choose it. But now, it's time we think about diving into the Symphonica platform key concepts and fundamentals. As we mentioned in the introductory module, Symphonica is highly oriented to standards. It is important that you understand some of the core concepts before diving around the user interface. In this module, we will discuss the concept of service orders, and its central role in the service activation process. We will begin to understand the concepts of the service catalog, and service inventory. We will see some examples of how services are described in the catalog by their specifications, and how they are represented in the inventory. We will also explore the service order management process, and the step-by-step flow, or business logic followed by Symphonica when receiving a new service order to process. Let's start at the beginning. What do we understand by service activation? Service activation, also known as service provisioning, is the process of making available the necessary resources to fulfill a service for a customer, by allocating those resources in the communication service provider's network. The process of service activation comprises a range of activities that must be carried out in the correct sequence. That's why you often hear the concepts of orchestration related to service activation. Starting with an order received from a customer, the activation process involves a chain of events resulting in the service being activated at the network level, and the billing system registering the new customer. When a customer requests a new service, or a change to an existing one, a service order is created and sent to Symphonica. Once in Symphonica, the service order is decomposed into a set of network resources that will be configured to fulfill the services for the customer. Depending on the content of the service order, the activation process may impact several disparate network elements that must be configured, or reconfigured, to fulfill the service. We will use the term network element to generally refer to any platform involved in the activation process. It can be an individual network element, a network management system, a cloud or virtual service, or any system or platform required for the configuration of the service. As you well know, provisioning interfaces, communication protocols, and command sets can vary across network elements. Symphonica abstracts the business process from the network complexity. It is also important to notice that, to avoid dependency-related errors, the activation process must be properly orchestrated so that the configuration tasks are executed in the correct order. Finally, after configuring the service on the network, Symphonica notifies the completion of the order to the billing system. That was an oversimplification of the process, and it might have sounded easy, but it's not. There are a lot of technical challenges involved in managing the activation process in a secure, performant, and scalable way. In order to seamlessly and efficiently orchestrate the service activation process, Symphonica implements the following concepts: multiple protocols, complex business rules, long-lasting orders, automatic and manual tasks, task dependencies, parallel processing, concurrency, connection pooling, queuing, prioritization, rate limit, synchronous and asynchronous messaging, fallout management, rollbacks and compensations, and notifications, among others. Moreover, as if that were not enough, all this complexity has to be designed with high-performant, high-available, and scalable architecture. Going back to the service activation process, we mentioned that the process begins when a customer requests a new service, or a change to an existing one, and a service order is created. But, what is a service order? A service order describes a group of operations to be executed in the form of one service order item per service. Each service order item describes the operation to be done on a service. An action at the level of the order item indicates the operation to execute. For instance, add, change or delete the service. The service order is normally triggered by the BSS, or any order entry system, and sent to Symfonica's Service Order Manager. In this example, you can see a service order to fulfill broadband internet access for a customer. Let's take a look at the information included in the service order. At the top of the order, you will see some global attributes like the order priority, the source, indicating the system where the order was created, and the order type, indicating the purpose of the order. Then, at the bottom of the order, you will see some information about the related party, which, in this case, would be the customer requiring the broadband internet service. Related party information includes the customer's identifier and the customer's name. The related party information is important to establish the relationship between the services and the customers in the service inventory database. In the middle is the most important part of the order: the order items list. In this example, two services are needed for activating broadband internet access: the access service and the high-speed data service, from now on, HSD service. Each service is included in the service order as a service order item. Each service order item includes the following information. The action is the operation to be performed on the service. For example, add, modify, delete, etc. The service code is the identifier of the service in the service catalog database. The characteristics is a list of name-value pairs to store instance-specific values of attributes. Let's take a look at the HSD service. In this case, there is an additional characteristic for the bandwidth profile. In the case of the access service, the characteristics are the OLT and port. As you can see, each service has its own particular characteristics. The characteristics of each service are defined by the service specification in the service catalog. We will talk more about the service catalog and specifications later on in this module. Symphonica provides two different interfaces to manage service orders. You can manage service orders by integrating your BSS, or order entry systems, using the TM4M641 service ordering API. This interface uses a similar format, for describing the service orders, than the one we've seen in the previous example. You can also manually create service orders using the Service Order Manager application, included in Symfonica's Web Administration Console. This application will guide you through a wizard-like workflow interface, to create the service order. We mentioned before, that the characteristics of the services, that you manage with the service orders, are defined by its service specification in the service catalog. The service catalog is a database with the information about all service specifications. The service specification includes information about the characteristics, relationships, and supported actions of a service. Each service has to be previously specified in the service catalog to be available for the Service Order Manager. The specification includes information of the characteristics, the relationships and the supported actions, of a service. The characteristics are the attributes that define the service. Each characteristic has a name that identifies it, a data type, and a set of validation rules. For instance, if it is mandatory or optional. The relationships are the dependencies between different services. One service may require that you activate other services, as a prerequisite. The actions are the supported operations on the service. For example, add, modify, suspend, resume, or delete. Following the example of the broadband internet access, the specification for the HSD service defines a characteristic for storing the bandwidth profile. This characteristic is mandatory, which means that you must include the bandwidth profile every time that you include an HSD service in a service order. The specification also defines that the bandwidth profile is represented as a string of up to 32 characters. It also defines a relationship with the access service. This means that you cannot add an HSD service without having an access service. The specification also defines the supported actions for the service. In this case, you will be able to create service orders to add, modify, delete, suspend, and resume HSD services. You can associate service specifications to multiple service catalogs. The service specification doesn't have to be assigned to a catalog, but it is a good practice to keep the configuration organized. For instance, you can have one catalog for residential services, another for small business, and another for enterprise. Now that we have a high-level understanding of the service activation process, and we know what a service order is, how to manage service orders, and how services are specified in the service catalog, let's take a look at the service order management process, and see what happens when Symphonica receives a service order. When Symphonica receives a service order, it starts processing each of the order items in the sequence in which they are included in the order. The process begins with the lookup of a workflow process to trigger. The selection criteria are based on two variables, the service being managed, and the action being executed. As a result, the selection rules return the process to be executed by the workflow engine. Then, the BPM-based workflow engine executes the selected process based on its particular business logic and definitions, that was previously configured with the design studio. Normally, the workflow includes the orchestration needed to configure the service in several network elements, and the registration of the provisioned service in the service inventory. Finally, the service order is marked as completed, and the notification of completion is sent to the notification engine. The service inventory stores and manages service instances, their attributes and relationships. A service instance is a specific realization, for a particular customer, of a service specification, from the catalog. In object-oriented programming terms, a service specification in the catalog would be a class, and the service instance in the inventory would be an object. In the previous example, as a result of the service activation process for the broadband internet access, two service instances are created and stored in the inventory, one for the access service, and another one for the HSD service. Here, we can see how the service instances, for this particular service, of this particular customer, are represented in the service inventory. Remember, the catalog stores service specifications, and the inventory stores service instances. Think in service specifications, as an abstraction of the service as a template, and in service inventory instances, as a concrete service for a concrete customer. In the catalog, you see definitions like attributes and data types. In the inventory, you see the values for a specific service instance. This module was your first dive into Symfonica's platform key concepts. Let's sum up the main things we have covered. The service order describes the group of operations to be executed by Symphonica. As an example, a service order could be adding a high-speed data service, with a bandwidth profile of 150 megabits, for the customer John Doe. Service orders can be managed by using the Service Ordering API, or manually from the Web Administration Console. The service catalog is where all service specifications are defined. A service specification defines the service characteristics, supported actions, and dependencies with other services. The service inventory is where all service instances are stored. Service instances are the realization of a particular service, for a particular customer. In the next module, we will be covering a few more key concepts, that are really important to have a good understanding of the Symphonica platform, before going hands-on.